The year 1929 began with a sense of boundless optimism. The streets of New York were alive with the energy of a nation riding high on the wave of economic prosperity. People were dressed in the latest fashions, and the cityscape was a testament to the booming economy. America was in the midst of the Roaring Twenties, an era of unprecedented prosperity and cultural dynamism. Jazz music filled the air, and the dance floors were crowded with people celebrating their newfound wealth. It was a time of great social change, with new technologies and cultural shifts transforming everyday life. The stock market, a symbol of this newfound wealth, soared to dizzying heights. Investors were making fortunes overnight, and the trading floors were a frenzy of activity. Wall Street became the epicenter of this financial boom, with everyone from seasoned traders to everyday citizens trying to get a piece of the action. Yet beneath the surface of prosperity, cracks were beginning to appear. While the wealthy enjoyed lavish lifestyles, many Americans were struggling to make ends meet. Breadlines and unemployment queues were a stark contrast to the opulence of the Roaring Twenties, hinting at the underlying economic vulnerabilities. The year 1929 would expose these vulnerabilities, ultimately leading to a global economic crisis, the Great Depression. The stock market crash sent shockwaves through the financial world, causing panic and chaos. Crowds gathered outside banks, desperate to withdraw their savings as the financial system teetered on the brink of collapse. The events of 1929 serve as a stark reminder that economic prosperity can be fleeting. The transition from the roaring prosperity of the 1920s to the harsh realities of the 1930s was swift and brutal. Families who had once enjoyed the luxuries of the era now faced unemployment and poverty. The year witnessed the collapse of the American stock market, an event that would reverberate across the globe. Black Tuesday, as it came to be known, marked the beginning of a decade-long economic downturn that affected millions of lives. The scenes of economic turmoil and bank failures became all too common. This essay delves into the key events of 1929, examining the causes and consequences of the stock market crash and its profound impact on the world. We will explore how the optimism of the early months gave way to despair, and how the lessons learned from this tumultuous year continue to resonate today. Through the lens of history, we can better understand the fragility of economic systems and the importance of vigilance in safeguarding against future crises. The stock market, fueled by speculation and easy credit, had been on an upward trajectory for years. Investors were euphoric, believing that the market would continue to rise indefinitely. This period of economic prosperity and optimism was known as the Roaring Twenties. People from all walks of life, from wealthy businessmen to middle-class families, were investing heavily in stocks, often with borrowed money. The allure of quick and substantial profits was irresistible. However, by the fall of 1929, warning signs began to emerge. Some financial experts started to voice concerns about the sustainability of the market's rapid growth. They pointed out that stock prices were becoming increasingly detached from the actual value of the companies they represented. Despite these warnings, many investors chose to ignore the risks, driven by the fear of missing out on potential gains. Stock prices had become detached from the actual value of companies. This disconnect was largely due to rampant speculation, where investors bought stocks not based on the company's performance, but on the expectation that prices would continue to rise. This speculative bubble was unsustainable, and it was only a matter of time before it burst. On October 24, 1929, now infamously known as Black Thursday, panic selling gripped Wall Street. The initial wave of selling was triggered by a sudden loss of confidence among investors. As stock prices began to plummet, more and more investors rushed to sell their shares, creating a vicious cycle of declining prices and increasing panic. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a key market indicator, plunged dramatically. The sheer speed and magnitude of the decline shocked even the most seasoned traders. In a matter of hours, billions of dollars in paper wealth were wiped out, leaving investors in a state of disbelief and despair. Attempts by leading bankers to stabilize the market provided only temporary respite. They pooled their resources to buy large quantities of stocks, hoping to restore confidence and halt the decline. For a brief moment it seemed like their efforts might succeed, but the underlying issues were too deep-rooted to be resolved so easily. The panic reached its peak on Black Monday, October 28th, and Black Tuesday, October 29th. On these days, the market experienced unprecedented declines, with the Dow Jones dropping by nearly 13% on Monday and an additional 12% on Tuesday. The scale of the losses was staggering, and the impact was felt far beyond Wall Street. On these fateful days, the market experienced unprecedented declines, wiping out billions of dollars in paper wealth. The crash marked the beginning of the Great Depression, a period of severe economic hardship that would last for over a decade. The events of Black Thursday, Black Monday, and Black Tuesday serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked speculation and the fragility of financial markets. The collapse of the American stock market sent shockwaves across the globe. European nations, still recovering from the First World War, were particularly vulnerable. International trade, already hampered by protectionist policies, ground to a halt. The collapse of the American economy, the world's largest at the time, had a domino effect. Banks failed, businesses shuttered, and unemployment soared. The world was entering a new and frightening era. The Great Depression. The stock market crash of 1929 did not occur in a vacuum. A confluence of factors contributed to the economic instability that culminated in the Great Depression. Overproduction, particularly in the agricultural sector, led to falling prices and dwindling profits. Easy credit, while fueling economic growth in the short term, had masked underlying structural weaknesses. The gap between the rich and the poor had widened, leading to a decline in consumer spending. Section 5. Unequal harvest. Farmers struggle under a different burden. The agricultural sector, a cornerstone of the American economy, had been struggling for much of the 1920s. Overproduction, coupled with falling crop prices, had driven many farmers into debt. The stock market crash exacerbated their plight, leading to widespread farm foreclosures and deepening the economic crisis. The plight of farmers, already burdened by debt and falling incomes, illustrated the uneven nature of prosperity in the 1920s. Their struggles would have profound social and political consequences in the years to come. Section 6. Money Matters, the Gold Standard and the Limits of Policy. The international monetary system, based on the gold standard, limited the ability of governments to respond effectively to the crisis. The gold standard, while intended to promote stability, restricted the money supply and hampered efforts to stimulate economic growth. Central banks, constrained by the gold standard, were hesitant to lower interest rates or increase the money supply, fearing it would undermine confidence in their currencies. This rigidity exacerbated the economic downturn. Section 7. A World Adrift, the Global Reach of the Depression. The Great Depression was not confined to the United States. It was a global crisis, impacting countries across Europe, Asia, and Latin America. International trade plummeted, and unemployment soared worldwide. The Depression led to political instability, social unrest, and the rise of extremist ideologies in many parts of the world. It was a stark reminder of the interconnected nature of the global economy. Section 8. Beyond the Crash, Other Events in a Tumultuous Year. While the stock market crash and the ensuing Great Depression dominated the narrative of 1929, other notable events occurred that year. The Lateran Treaty, signed between Italy and the Vatican, established Vatican City as an independent state. Technological advancements continued, with the invention of the first practical helicopter and the development of the first commercially successful car radio. These innovations, however, were overshadowed by the economic turmoil that gripped the world. Section 9, 1929, A Legacy of Change. This year marked a pivotal moment in history, a time when the world stood on the precipice of monumental change. The events that unfolded during this period would shape the course of the 20th century and beyond. The events of 1929 left an indelible mark on the world. The bustling streets of Wall Street, once a symbol of unbridled prosperity, became the epicenter of a financial catastrophe. The stock market crash sent shockwaves across the globe, affecting millions of lives. The Great Depression, triggered by the stock market crash, led to profound economic, social, and political changes. Families were torn apart, businesses shuttered, and the very fabric of society was tested. Breadlines and soup kitchens became a common sight. As unemployment soared and hope dwindled, it ushered in an era of government intervention in the economy, as governments sought to mitigate the effects of the crisis and prevent future disasters. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform, reshaping the role of government in American life. The legacy of 1929 serves as a reminder of the fragility of economic prosperity and the importance of addressing underlying structural weaknesses. The contrast between the roaring 20s and the subsequent decade of hardship underscores the volatility of economic cycles. It also highlights the interconnectedness of the global economy and the need for international cooperation in times of crisis. Countries around the world grappled with the fallout, each responding in their own way, yet the shared experience underscored the necessity for a united approach to global economic challenges. As the world slowly recovered, the lessons of 1929 remained etched in collective memory. The resilience and determination of people, coupled with innovative policies, paved the way for a new era of economic thought and international collaboration. The legacy of change continues to influence our world today, reminding us of the importance of vigilance, cooperation, and adaptability in the face of adversity.